Katie, thank you for coming back.
Yes,
I would say
absolutely.
thank you for coming on the podcast, but what most people will never know is that you were here already a couple episodes before the ones I've had published since, and unfortunately Murphy was in the room with us
Yes,
and took care of making sure that the mic you were
not a
using
problem.
was yeah in op,
Absolutely.
unfortunately. But thank you for coming back.
Of course.
It's I would sometimes just let it go, but not in this case because it's so important what you do, and it's so relevant for our current times.
Yes.
Given how much of a shift we're seeing in HR and the treatment around how we deal with people in our company.
Yes.
So I would probably keep hunting it down until you come back.
Yes. Well, I'm
So
happy I'm here.
thank you.
For
You made
sure.
it easy for me.
Yep. Not a problem. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So let's start with just give us a quick commercial on who's Katie, what do you currently do, and where can people find your content, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. I am Katie Spadoro, and I'm the founder of CYB Human Resources, and we specialize in small business managed HR. So
Is it an acronym, by the way?
yes.
Okay.
It is either cover your bases or cover your butt, depending on who you are.
Right. Depending on who you're talking to.
Depending on who we're talking to, depending on the industry you're in.
Okay,
So
I
our
like that.
construction, oil guys and clients are typically cover your butt, for sure. And we are nationwide. So we work with clients across the country, and we have now just expanded to Denver, Colorado, where we are right now. So which is really cool. We started in Tulsa, Oklahoma in January 2015.
Nice. Is there a reason why you decided you want to come here strategically?
Well, yes. So we had kind of spent years in Tulsa, which is an awesome place. And we built out the business and got to kind of test the market and see what small businesses need because they have so many small businesses there. And then the next growth step was really either Dallas or Denver. And I love to ski. And
There you go.
Denver is beautiful. So Denver definitely kind of took precedence over Dallas. And it was just a nice move.
Sure. No, I couldn't agree more. In that case specifically, it's my favorite spot to be in. We
Yes.
came from Florida, so
Yes.
the exchange was decent. I love Dallas. Don't get me wrong. I love to visit. I got family there.
Yep.
But the mountains.
Yeah, the mountains are hard to beat for sure, and my hair looks really good in Denver. It doesn't
There
look
you
as
go.
good in Tulsa or Miami or.
You see,
so,
yeah, I wouldn't think about that because I'm bald,
yes,
but
the humidity is definitely nice.
there you
here,
go.
So
That's very smart. I like that. Girls, take a tip.
yes, exactly, it's a good
If
spot.
you want, easy, everyday good hair days.
Yes, Denver's the spot.
Come to
for
Denver.
sure.
And as far as small businesses and the livelihood of that type of culture, you feel like Denver is thriving.
Absolutely, it's definitely growing, and new businesses are opening. And post COVID, I think people are expanding, and they're excited about this upcoming year, which I'm totally excited for 2022. It's been a hard run.
Sure. No, I totally feel you, and I hope we're going on the good end of things. I'm an optimist, so
Yes.
I always think we're on the good end
We're
of
moving
things.
up.
Right, but
Yes.
sometimes we haven't been. So yeah, I'm good with letting go of 2021. We've learned a lot.
Yes.
We've grown. I think
Absolutely.
we advanced as a
1,000%.
society, as a people, as individuals. We've learned a lot about ourselves, and there's a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah.
So I would definitely not, kiss it goodbye and say, I'm so happy we're over with you. Yes, it's a relief, but also there's a lot of value that we've extracted.
Yes.
And,
It's been a learning process.
Yeah,
For sure.
expedited one too,
yes.
because a lot of the lessons that we've learned were pushed upon us
Yeah.
due to the circumstances.
Yes.
Which
Extreme.
yeah, they were not easy, but that's where these type of adversities kind of push
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah. It's painful, but it's a good learning experience.
Right.
So
So before we go into the lessons learned and all that, I'll just give a general statement that I think the mass is that's the way the masses perceive HR, which is not good.
no.
And then we'll dissect
not.
that and talk about and why that could be seen in a different light.
Yes.
And the reason it's not perceived in a good light is because previous experiences and also big corporations and actually HR departments that were doing what you're trying to fix, what you're trying to do differently.
Yes.
And that's where your business comes to light, and that's why it's novel and exciting and,
Yeah.
and worthwhile for new business people that are just getting into it and don't have the HR backing. But generally speaking, I think it's perceived as a little bit of like the police for the business, especially I'm talking big corporation.
Yeah.
It's protecting the company owners and the board of directors and the stock shareholders and whatnot, not necessarily the employees.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking perception here, not necessarily specifically that's how it goes. There are exceptions. There's also the misconception that it's confidential, like in therapy. Not necessarily true when it comes to, again, there's a agenda that's set for the HR. If the HR executives at the top level are set to protect the company, they can't necessarily always be confidential to you, aka the employee, because sometimes what you just told them could be devastation, could be dangerous for the company.
Yes.
And you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the perception that we've come from, and I think that plays into what we're currently seeing with the Great Resignation and people like leaving jobs and coming up with new ways of working and thinking that their worth is different that they thought maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
And as well as you know, the whole concept of working from home. And I think that old school perception, I call it old school because I really think that it's shifting now, is for companies that were very much optimized to profit in dollar amount. So the unit measured in value wasn't the human factor, it was dollar amount,
Yeah.
which is a way to do it. I'm not saying it's the worst way, it's the best way, it's just a way. And seems like the result was, specifically in HR, the people felt like, okay, this is not my friend, it's not protecting me, it's not making a better culture for me. Really, it's just protecting the asses of these guys up there. And the change that I'm seeing in some companies, and you'll speak to that, I'm sure, since you coach these things exactly, is people as in the leaders, CEOs, directors, managers of high level, or even every level, are now shifting their approach to people first, people matter. What do my employees want in their lives, on their personal lives? How can I provide that to them? And they end up reaping the results and the benefits of a really, really highly, not just talented, but motivated workforce. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that the change that we've seen has been awesome in the sense that, and I know we've kind of touched on this, but you're either going to sink or swim with the change processes that we're seeing.
Right.
And as these
I
smaller
love that
businesses,
saying.
as these small businesses start to realize that the employees are what matter and the employees are the most important part of the business that you're building. And if you want them to do their job and be happy that there's more to life than just sitting at a desk for 8 hours and doing that. And they need to have an opportunity to have a life outside of their job, and like having a work-life balance that we've talked about. And it's super important. I mean, I think that the management teams have seen a shift in how to manage employees, and the ability to help them grow and provide them with future plans and opportunities. And I think they're just more in touch now with the employees that they're working with, and
Right.
learning more about them as an individual and seeing what actually is going to what's going to motivate them. It's going to be different for everybody. So it seems that the small businesses that we've been working with have transitioned over to being more in touch
Sure.
with their employees and their team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's just the thing that scares me the most is how we dealt with it before.
Yeah.
And I was just talking about this with a friend, and it's kind of weird how generations, if you compare our current, let's just say the majority of the workforce is millennials right now, and Gen Zs. If you compare them to a few generations back, there seems that we had more hesitancy to walk away from a job because I'm feeling like I'm worth more or whatnot. And there's many reasons for that. I think some of it is due to the fact that they're having less children, so their responsibility load is lower in that. And then, of course, there's the whole idea that, the generations of our parents and their parents seem to have been a little bit more hypnotized by the whole American dream and retirement and all that, where these generations are a little bit more focused on let's live now.
Yes, like
Like-
being stuck. They want the opportunity to to live their life. And
Right.
I mean, the change and the shift over the past 2 years, back to what you were saying about how HR used to, be viewed, that's really been our goal the past, I mean, we've been in business almost 7 years, and we really do want to change the view that people have of HR. So of course we're there to support and protect the business. But the way you protect the business is to have open communication with employees and provide them with support. And, happy employees and employees that feel like they're being heard are much less likely to cause problems and issues for the business owner. So it's kind of a give and take. And if the business owner is open, I mean, you have to be open to hearing what they have to say. You have to be open to making changes, and kind of moving forward with everyone as we grow. But I think the past 2 years have been really beneficial for everyone. It's been an eye opener for sure.
More so, I feel like that the employee that feels heard,
Yes.
feels like somebody actually genuinely has an interest in their personal life and their balance and how they feel and how they're doing and their performance. Not only they're going to cause less problems, you're harnessing, not harvesting. Harvesting sounds bad. It sounds like the Matrix, like we're putting them in little.
Yeah.
You're harnessing a much better version of that person
Yes.
that wants to do good, that wants to be a part of the culture, be a part of the team, and for a genuine reason, not fake it.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and I want you to speak to that. Like, what do you recommend, and how do you coach leaders and managers and CEOs and whatnot when it comes to having a genuine interest in their people? Because it needs to come from a place of actually caring for your people. I think it's something that's really hard to fake, and people can kind of tell. Their lie detector is going to kind of go off really quickly if somebody's like, oh, what did you do Sunday? And then they hear him say it to the next guy, what did you do?
Same thing. Yeah.
Right. So it needs to come from a real place, and that's the only way.
Yeah.
So how would you coach CEOs and managers?
I mean, it starts with hiring. So the hiring process is super important, and the way that you're hiring a team member and the way that you're interviewing them and onboarding them and the expectations for that are pretty high. So if you want to have high quality individuals working at your business, you want to have a hiring process and an onboarding process that when they get started, they're excited to be there, and you're not just kind of throwing them a job description and you're like, all right, get to work. Like it's more
Right.
like, it's more we're inviting you in to be part of this team, and we're super excited, and providing the management team with the support that they need to do their job, which essentially when we work with companies, we work alongside the managers and we help them make decisions and we help them coach their team in a way that's going to benefit everybody. But I mean, again, there's a line between being somebody's friend and being their manager, which is not always easy, especially at a small business, because you're growing and we all love each other, and we have a really hard time disciplining somebody when we're best friends with them. So it's a learning process. But when they have the support from the business owner, the CEO, who says, listen, we have a team, like our team, for example, we have a team that we've brought on that you can call and say, listen, this is going on with the employee. I feel like, they need some new motivation, or they're not coming to work on time, and they're really good employees. So let's kind of figure that out and see how we can bring the best out in them.
That makes perfect sense. And since you've brought up hiring and all that process, I feel like we're also due for a little bit of an update in that regard when it comes to resumes and experience and the type of things people have done before they are going on this job. I feel like expectations usually are pretty off.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's irrelevant. I feel like sometimes to go by the resume that says, this is kind of like my paper commercial. It says all the best things that you want to hear about me.
Yeah.
Some of them are true. Some of them are a little bit more than true,
Yes, for
Some
sure.
of them not true at all.
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel like it's not a good representation of talent
Yes.
and also experience. Forgive me for like talking about college for a minute, but a lot of times it has nothing to do with what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. Many people say it's almost like a reoccurring theme. What did you go for in college? Oh, this and this. And I ended up working in this and this, but what I've learned in college has nothing to do with what I'm doing.
Yes.
So is it even relevant? It is in some way, but let me have you answer that.
Yeah. So, I mean, real life experience is super important. And I am a huge believer in, obviously, there are certain requirements for different jobs and certain qualifications, like tests that you need to have taken. And for example, for HR, like a PHR or an SPHR, and that just shows that you're qualified to do the job. But I am a huge believer in bringing on individuals who may be a little more green in the area of experience. And I myself bring on team members very often that are just good people. And they have the qualifications, the basic qualifications that they need, but they're green in certain areas, and they're coachable, which is huge, and they're excited to learn. And it kind of has to be, like I said, a give and take. So the management team has to be willing to coach and manage that employee, not micromanage them, just, teach them how to do it right the first time. And then they're going to have questions, so letting them know that it's okay for them to ask you questions as a manager. And then eventually it's like kind of like a little kid. You just got to push them out of that little bird. You got to push them out of the nest. And there's probably going to be mistakes that are going to be made because no one's perfect. But I mean, the purpose of hiring somebody is so that you don't have to do that part of the job anymore. And a lot of the time we see people hire employees and then micromanage them to death. And they end up leaving because they're like, you hired me for this position and now you're doing the job.
Right.
You're not like giving me any chance to even
You're
be
doing
creative.
the job through me.
Yes. So having to, you coach them and you train them, and then you kind of set them on their way and give them the opportunity to learn more. And if
fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are at some point going to.
They have to.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
So
it's the price of learning.
Exactly. But I mean, it makes you, as long as it doesn't cause, it doesn't lose a client, or it doesn't cause a lawsuit, or it's a minor error. I mean, things happen, but you learn from them.
Right.
And just as a manager, being open to the idea that no one's perfect, and we have to be okay with the learning process.
Sure. I guess it's also the manager's job to play that realm of letting their own people fail for the sake of learning in a way that's safe.
Yes.
Right? Because
sure.
you can't blame it on them.
Yes.
You need to create a playing field for them and let them do, kind of define boundaries and see what's okay. You can't just tell a person, okay, I coached you for my exact 5 days that I put down on the calendar. Now you're on your own.
Don't screw up.
Oh, you lost me a client. That's all on you.
Yes, for sure.
Actually, it's all on you, manager.
Yes.
And you caused this in one way or another.
They need to learn in baby steps, I think. And you bring on an employee. It's, in my opinion, being coachable is the most important thing about bringing on a new employee. Obviously, they have to have a good background, and you do their references and you do your due diligence, and you make sure that, their resume is accurate as best you can. But a lot of that real life experience, I don't mind. I like coaching and teaching those that work for me and showing them how it's done. And also they teach me every day. So that's another thing, is being open to what a new employee has to say. And just because you've done it this way 20 years doesn't mean that that's the best way.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, having somebody new and fresh kind of look at it and say, hey, I know you've been doing it like this, but I think that, maybe we could try it this way.
Right.
And kind of considering that option.
Right.
So,
yeah, I want to mirror a few things you said and amplify them. One is, I feel like it's really important to hire character and then later on train for skill.
yes.
Because skill alone, even if it's good skill, 5 years of experience and skill, sometimes there's a place for that. But a lot of times, if there's no character behind it, that's one, untrainable. Two, you said coachable. People that have a lot of experience are, I wouldn't say by definition are not coachable, but it takes a hell of a character to be very experienced and coachable.
Yes.
Those people are, a dime a dozen, and they end up being, managers and C executives and owners of companies because they have that openness, open-mindedness.
Yes.
So good luck finding somebody that can do everything in your company and also wants to be coachable.
And also wants to learn from you.
Right.
Exactly. For sure.
So that's the one thing. And what's your response to that before I go over to the next thing?
I think I think what you're saying is perfect. I think that you just being open to hiring, and COVID in this past few years has opened up eyes of business owners and the opportunity to, for example, outsource services that you may not have done before. Like, it's not necessary for you to have an HR person in your office with you at all times.
Sure.
Like we can provide, for example, high level HR support, and we're able to do that on an outsourced basis. And it kind of provides, it opens up the business owner's eyes to new ways that you can find talent, to being able to work with people from around the world. It's really cool to see.
Well, I love that. And the second thing I wanted to say, without stirring up what you were just replied to, because I wanted to get a genuine reply for just that. But now to develop that a little bit, how do you train these executives, these owners of companies, or whoever it is you're training in your clientele, to be coachable themselves? Because a big deal in being a really good manager and an owner of a company is to be open-minded, to learn from your own employees, to learn from the people that you hired. I mean, essentially, you want to hire people that are better than you.
Yeah.
Smarter, faster, more capable. Sometimes they're not going to be as well-rounded, but maybe you've hired a coder that is definitely 10 times better than you in a certain task, and he can tell you, hey, you got this all wrong. And you want to be able to listen, take that in, and make pretty big shifts in the way you perceive your business based on these feedbacks you're getting from your people. If you're not open to that, I feel like it's already somewhat of a stab wound that's just going to keep bleeding and bleeding.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that if it's hard. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Nothing's impossible, but it's hard to teach someone to be coachable. So
Sure.
Either they are or they're not. And if
Yeah,
they're not,
we just covered that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if they're not, they're not, and that's a problem, because they're at some point they're going to fail, and they're not going to be open to people giving them suggestions on how we can make this better.
Right.
But I mean, if they're working with us, they're coachable, because being able to be open to the idea that maybe there's a better way to manage their employees.
It's already a good start.
Yes, it's a good start. So if you're open to having an HR professional walk you through new processes and train your management team,
You're already seeking that type of help.
Yes, you're already seeking it, and you're already aware of the fact that, listen, I'm good at X, Y, and Z, but I'm not an accountant. I'm not a HR director.
Sure.
There's certain areas that I could probably utilize somebody else to help me there. And that's a good start.
Right. That's good. I mean, that's where the whole think or swim concept comes in, because I feel like out of the total companies out there currently operating, a very large number is not going to be able to do these adaptations. Most of it is just out of habit, because habit, dies hard.
Yep.
And that's just what happens. In order to make significant change, we need awareness, and awareness is only going to come through another success story and another success story and another one after that. And it just means that, statistically speaking, I think that there's a large amount of companies that are going to fail due to these reasons alone, because they still are managed, owned, and operated by people that think that it's okay. Well, that the concept is really, I can just replace this person
Yes.
with some more money, with somebody else can do your job, basically.
Yes.
I hate that saying.
Yes.
Even when it's sometimes true. It's just unfortunate, because when you don't appreciate your people, coach them. Also, sometimes fire them. Sometimes the right thing is to fire them.
Yeah.
Maybe you could speak to that in a minute. But I think the people that won't get on board with people first, I, the owner, the manager, the CEO, am working for my employees.
Yes.
You don't pick that up, I think you're going to get left behind relatively quickly.
It's painful. And a lot of the times, you have to go through some pain to realize that there's better ways to do things. And maybe you experience that as a business owner, and you just are at a point where you're like, this is really painful, and I'm not 100% sure that I'm doing it right. And at that point, you're either going to be like, listen, we're going to still do it this way, even though it sucks. Or you're going to be like, you know what, maybe I could consider listening to somebody else and find some new ways of doing it. Because, the small business is the majority.
Right.
Small businesses are growing, and it's super exciting to see. And I love small business. So they're flexible, and they're able to implement things quicker. There's less red tape. So partnering with small businesses is something that we really do enjoy. It's cool to see.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure it's rather satisfying.
Yes.
Going in and seeing what's broken and helping put that back together.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a lot of joy that comes out of that. Let me ask you about something that's for sure common right now. We're going into, just like every generation, new ways of appearance, new ways of thinking, new ways of talking. Every generation comes up with their new stuff. Some generation it was Heelys. Actually, Heelys are back now.
Yes.
But now crazy hair and piercings and whatnot, and it carries a halo effect. People have biases. They have immediate assumptions on a person that looks a certain way because they're like, oh, they must be X and Y or this and that. And what are your thoughts on that? Because we know that some of the most talented people in the world also are expressing themselves in a visual way, in their appearance, in a way that might seem a little wacko for somebody who's, let's say, 70 years old and have been doing a certain thing a certain way for a very long time.
Yeah, I think being open, and I think that COVID and this past experience, these past 2 years, having the opportunity to hire people that you don't necessarily see every day in your office, has given that idea of having to have a certain look and a certain style and all of this. And we have, we've worked with clients that have a really hard time with allowing little things like hair color change and tattoos and some piercings, and they're working in a call center, so the person on the other end of the phone never even sees them. So
Right.
if they're good at their job, they're good at their job. If they're qualified and they're good people and they're able to speak and they have email etiquette, and that's what matters, honestly. And I think that that's one of the shifts that we're seeing, and that's one of the things that if you're not going to get on board, you're going to miss out on some really cool, awesome talent
Sure.
by just saying, oh, I don't really like that there's a nose piercing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't care.
Right.
Honestly, like, if you're good at your job and it's not a safety hazard,
Right.
that's what matters.
Yeah. No,
So-
I think I couldn't agree more. It's pretty stupid, and I think it shouldn't be a representation of someone's capability or even their personality.
100%.
So we got that out of the way. Hopefully, people get on board with that. It's just, I get why it is. Having a piercing on your face, I don't know, 30 years ago was probably a little more extreme.
Yeah.
Depends where. Maybe not in Los Angeles, but in certain areas of the country.
Yeah.
In, Montgomery, Alabama.
And it also is what job you're doing. So it
Right.
matters what job you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want,
And who you're meeting with.
Right.
If I'm a high level surgeon, I'm probably not going to, for safety and health concerns, be able to have piercings all over my body while I'm
Yeah.
in a surgery.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Sure.
If I'm just on the phone and no one's really seeing, and this is how I express myself, and I'm good at my job, I don't see it as
Right.
being an issue.
Right. I mean, I probably I would agree with that. I mean, I feel like we should start accepting it more and more as a society anyway. But also, there are just jobs that if you are pursuing, that has to do with your appearance, like a salesperson.
Yeah.
A lot of times people just want to be very, very comfortable around you. So you need to
Yes.
be rather neutral,
Absolutely.
not overbearing, and also not, too weak.
Yeah.
But sometimes having, 3 piercings. I had piercings all over my face
Yes.
too, and I have nothing against it. I'm just saying I understood that while I was having them, it was an expression of my personality, and it wouldn't be necessarily the right thing for certain jobs.
Yes, and you're mirroring, and a lot of the times you're mirroring, the location and the place that you are. So someone who's selling medical devices versus someone who's selling alcohol
Right.
to a bartender or that kind of deal, it's a different demographic, it's a different group, and being able to mirror who you're working with and is obviously looking professional no matter what is the
Right.
most important. But it does matter, I think, just where you are and who you're with.
Yeah. I think it carries over a lot from, military culture that, wearing a uniform and being all strict and clean and disciplined and whatnot. And some business owners want to either consciously want to or just subconsciously carry over the habit to, take these values in. But there's ways to give people the freedom to look and act the way they want
Yes.
in a professional manner.
Yes.
And in a professional setting and in a way that is, free, but also it creates good culture in the company.
Yes, like a give
It's a
and
weird
take.
balance, though,
Yeah.
because it's hard. If you just do a free for all, people are going to abuse it because we're people.
Yes, and that's
So
why.
what do we do?
Yeah, you have to have some sort of baseline policies, right? You have
Sure.
to have something that, when you're in the office, you have to wear pants. Like that's a baseline policy. Like you have to.
I think that's a good one.
Like baseline policies where if you don't have anything in place, someone is going to not do it right. Right.
Right.
So
There's always going to be that guy.
yeah. So you have to have something
girl.
in place, or girl. You have to have something in place that's the minimum. But for example, like we talked briefly just like about flex time and providing the ability to work from home and things like that, where, yeah, we expect you to be on a call on Monday at 10 a.m. and on Friday at 2 p.m. Those are our standard meetings, and we want you to be professional and look business professional on those calls. But you're allowed to work from home on Tuesday and Wednesday and things like that, where you're kind of flexing and providing them, employees, the ability to understand that you're supporting them and supporting them outside of having these very strict guidelines. And when you're implementing policies, it's more appreciated and they're followed and complied with more when there's not 1,000 of them for no reason.
Sure.
So having policies that are important for safety and health and for growth of the business and things like that everyone can understand, there's more compliance instead of having 1,000 policies that are just because you don't like purple hair.
Right.
Or like just because you wouldn't get a tattoo on your arm, things like that.
Right,
Like there's
exactly.
there's got to be a middle ground. So
That makes sense. And it reminds me of a saying from this old book. So it's a little dusty. We'll have to, in our imagination, blow the dust off of it. But it's about people. And the saying is, win the business, win the people. I think a lot of people know that and know what that means. It's out of a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think. The title doesn't do a good representation, I think, to the content of the book. I think it's a really good book that I highly recommend people that work with others. It sounds like maybe like a Bible for somebody who wants to manipulate people, but it's not that at all. It's actually the whole way through. What's the name of the guy? I'll put it on the screen here because I forgot. But the whole way through the book, he explains how being genuine in your interest in people is so extremely important, and your interest in them, it can't be fake. So, for example, he gives a scenario where you would walk into someone's office, scan the room for one thing you can correlate to, and if for someone it's a picture of this guy fishing, make a conversation about that. Don't go straight to business. Try to connect with the person, whether it's someone you need something from or he needs something from you, or you guys can contribute to each other. It's an employee or a business partner or a potential investor. It doesn't matter. He's a person. And it's funny that he said that, our favorite thing in the world is to talk about ourselves. Just open that door.
yeah,
Genuinely.
absolutely.
Find one thing, a little picture that they put on their cubicle. It doesn't matter. Oh, that thing, I can talk to you about that, and I want you to talk.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Yeah, exactly. Do it genuinely, and you're going to win the people. And when you do have the people, when you do win their, them liking you and appreciating you and seeing that you actually respect them and have interest in them, you are going to win the business.
Yeah.
Because
loyalty and support.
you have people out there working for you for real.
Yes.
They're not just there to clock in, clock out,
Yes.
punch the ticket, and that's it.
And I think that, we've been able to, as we've grown the business and we've had to, change and learn. And we are at a place right now where we have the opportunity to really attract very similar minded individuals who own businesses, who actually care about their employees, and form genuine connections with them, because we care about our employees, and I care about my team heavily, and I couldn't do what I do without having an awesome team that supports the processes.
Right.
And so I want to be able to connect with other business owners, and that's who we want to work with, is other business owners that are looking to do the exact same thing, and we just make sure that they cross their T's and dot their I's and don't get sued in the process. But there's
That
also
helps.
like that's that's the bottom line. Like that is
helps.
definitely our number one goal, is to make sure that they are legally compliant with HR rules. But it's not like this old lady, I say, like the old lady in the corner yelling about like a tire or things like that. It's so much more about the individual and the culture and what you're trying to build as a business owner, and provide an awesome area where employees want to be working for you, versus they're just like, I have to go to work and I'd leave down the street if they paid me 20 cents more.
Right.
Like that's not the kind of environment you want to have.
No, you have to want to avoid that if you're even aware of it.
Yep.
And I'm afraid that there's a lot of businesses right now ongoing. Some, that I know personally that are willing to. I don't know if they're consciously accepting the fact that people that they put into jobs have no interest in doing the job properly. They just want the salary, and they'll do exactly the minimum just to get in, get out. Some of them don't even know their job.
Yeah.
In large enough corporations, I swear,
Yeah.
some people are just like, yeah, I know the title.
And that's another problem is like not having. So we talked about briefly the hiring process. When you're hiring somebody, you need to really take time in that process. You need to build a job description for the job, not for the person that's been in the job for 25 years and is kind of just doing it. It's what if I could build this perfect position, what would this position look like? And then once you have the job description, now we're going to find that person. Instead of just having a job description that's kind of, we're just going to hire somebody with the same title that has this title listed on their LinkedIn, whether or not they actually know what they're doing or whether or not they're interested in doing this long term. That's another question is this something that you can grow from? Is this something that you actually are going to be happy doing? Or are we just bringing you in here to fill a seat?
And that's the scary part, that I know that there's some people, a minority, that are willing to just, like you said, fill a seat, bring the income back home, and then go do what they actually like. But I think the vast majority of people, and they've done research on this, could not, I wouldn't say could not, would not like to go to a job where what they do doesn't matter, they don't really contribute, the value of their performance is almost zero, if not zero, and they're just collecting a paycheck.
Yes.
Like I said, there's a minority of people that might be okay with that, but most people, we're built in, we're wired that way genetically. That's how we evolved to be who we are today as a species. Just don't like the feeling of, and this is exactly how the research goes. They bring a few people into a room, one at a time. Hey, do this task. It could be filling a form, writing an essay, painting a little drawing, whatever. And to some people, they said, okay, here's, what we thought of it. We graded it. This is all that. And then they asked them, how do you feel about that? And to the other group, they said, okay, let me see your job. Make it into a crumble, throw it behind my back. Say, okay, thank you, you're good. And then they asked them, how do you feel about that? It doesn't mean much. It's just a little drawing, but they put effort into it. Mm-hmm. The slightest effort, right? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes out of their day just to do a silly research. But still, people reported, when you do this in front of me of the thing you told me to do and I put effort into it, doesn't matter how much effort, it makes me feel like shit.
Yeah.
And when you tell me how I performed, good or bad, just interest in it, already better.
Yeah. And yeah, so when we have conversations with employees, and we coach on this a lot, how we have, not everyone, like we started, not everyone's perfect, and there's going to be mistakes made, and find something that they've done positive, that they're good at. And that's how we start the conversation. It's, listen, you're great at this, but we're having some issues in this area, and we want to help you figure out how to do better there. So not just kind of, if you're giving negative feedback, not just giving negative feedback all the time. That really starts to drain people, and they're not going to be motivated to do better if all they think you're going to do is yell at them and tell them they're doing bad. So, there's got to be, again, a mix of positive affirmations and some coaching on things that you're not doing right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like some of us would call that a shit sandwich.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. Yes.
But those sandwiches have been proven to work.
Yep.
So, no, for real though, it's important, and I understand what you're saying, and I think it makes total sense because what we just covered, it makes a lot of difference for somebody understanding that what they're doing is seen, noticed, taken into consideration, and positive versus negative feedback, they're taking different ways. Some negative feedback is harder to take in, but when at least it's taken with, okay, as a whole, I'm being seen here.
Yes.
Somebody actually wants me to improve.
Yes.
I can get over my ego.
Yeah.
And do better because there's a reason.
Yeah. And they're actually paying attention to how I'm doing, and they want me to be a better employee or a better person. And when we do anonymous surveys, for example, we tell the team, listen, these individuals are going to take 10, 20 minutes out of their day to do this survey and answer your questions, and how can we improve the business, and what are some awesome benefits you'd love to see. And you don't need to do every single thing that they've said, but you should definitely implement probably at least one thing, right? Because that's showing them that you are listening and you're not just doing this activity to waste their time, that you actually care what they have to say. And they, it could be something small. It could be, listen, we wish that we had a little bit more flex time, or, we wish that I could work from home once a week or once a month. Things like that are not that big of a deal in general. And that as a business owner, you can go, well, if it's something that they'll see this as a positive move, why not? I want to have a team that wants to be here. So I'm okay with that.
Okay. How do you feel about working from home? Specifically, you brought it up, so I want to dig into that, because it's a big deal right now. A lot of people are putting their heels down. A lot of people are loosening it. So there's not a universal agreement around this area yet.
Yes. So obviously there are some jobs that cannot be done outside of the office, and we're doing construction, we're doing physical labor. Those things, of course, need to be done in person. But for now, exactly, until there's robots doing it. Right. But I think that if you have the opportunity to offer remote work or that work from home, as long as you have policies in place, again, somebody's working from home, you want to have standards, cybersecurity policies, things like that is going to protect the business. But you can still keep a sense of team and have real meetings and have that contact and connection and things like that. But what I've seen is a lot of people work better when they have their own space and they're working from home, and they get more done when they're working at their home office. They're not, I don't need 20 people in an office just, wasting time. I'd rather have you get your job done, whether that takes 10 or 20 hours, and then enjoy your life. And we're seeing that a lot of positive feedback is coming from being able to work from home. And some people work better at 3:00 in the morning. What does it matter to me? Get your job done. And I think that should be, and honestly, that needs to be a thought process of like, listen, if you can do this job from anywhere and you can do it at any time, I want you to be productive yourself and feel like you're doing a really good job. So
sure.
That might be in the middle of the night. Who am I to tell you what time you need to be working? Just get the job done.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, if it doesn't matter, then even more. But it seems that we've just learned through this period of time and experience, forced experience, that people are more productive. And I'm not trying to put this as a general statement, but seems like a big amount of people doing a lot of types of jobs are more productive at home.
Yeah. And you can measure it. And something as a business owner, if this is a new thing for you and you're not really sure how comfortable you feel about people working from home, and, talk to the employees, find out if it's something that they like, find out if it's something that they feel benefits them, and kind of build policies around that instead of being very rigid in everything. Being able to be flexible. That's the benefit, again, of having a small growing business. Sure. Is you're small enough to be able to be flexible and offer cool benefits.
Right.
So
that's true, and it plays into the whole working from home being more productive. It plays right into work-life balance, because effectively it renders your life way more balanced.
Yes.
You don't have to commute. You don't have to do this and that, and it just makes you have more control over your time on your breaks. And it just seems that that's one of the major reasons. I don't want to say the only reason or the exclusive reason or anything like that. I think it's one of the major reasons that we're seeing this, big resignation wave, and people rethinking their life. And if you can solve for that, then you've done something big for your company. And my tip is to have people, especially HR professionals, in their work inside, if they're in their corporation, but also, of course, the managers, to have interest and vested interest in their people's and employees' work-life balance. Yes. Because what a lot of millennials are saying right now, let's not just refer them as millennials, but the workforce that is leaving jobs is saying, my work-life balance has been compromised and I didn't know how to put boundaries on it, which tells me, if you don't know how to put boundaries on it, we can teach this generation how to do that. But also, I understand where they're coming from, and it's actually the job of the manager to identify that and say, okay, this guy's getting a little off the charts here. He's working long nights. He's trying to be, a stellar performer. I want to keep that energy, but not at the expense of losing him.
Yes, and the mental health side of that is huge as well. So I mean, and that's something that I'm a big advocate for, is just the side of how important mental health is in a business and in a employee's life. And if they're working that hard and they're killer and they're a kick-ass employee, then maybe considering that there's another opportunity for them to grow within the business. So if they're working 12 hours and they're killing it and they love what they're doing, harnessing that and seeing that this person is into it and they're awesome. So saying, listen, maybe I can, provide some growth opportunity for this guy or this girl.
Make a runway for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, I don't want to lose them because if I don't do something like this, they're going to find something elsewhere that's going to make them feel more appreciated for all the work that they're doing.
Right.
So instead of overworking them, harnessing that and putting it into something that, there's a runway to grow.
Right. And I think that should be a blanket statement, because if you're in the business of producing a talent mindset culture in your business, which has to do with people, you're not going to do that with people that know they're capped.
100%.
Yeah.
And
some people are okay with that, and all they want to do is that specific pay that covers the car, that covers this thing, and they don't really care about your company.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to build a culture of talent mindset throughout, this hive mind of your company, these people want to know that they have somewhere to go. What's their runway? What's it going to take? How long? And they have goals to hit.
Yes,
that
and
are up to them.
That's the big part right there, is having very clear goals and having job descriptions. We just started working with the business, and they're awesome. I love them. And they kept saying, one of the first things we talked about was that they kept losing employees, and they don't understand why. And we looked at their job. They had one job description across the board, and it had basically one rate of pay, and that was it. There was no qualifications for the role. There was no opportunity for growth. And we said, listen, that's probably why, is because they don't see a way that they can grow within the business. So why don't we make a couple of levels for this position, 1, 2, and 3, have a couple qualifications.
Even if it's a great job, you're going to lose them.
Absolutely. So having a couple levels that they have something to work towards, and make them feel more fulfilled. And like, listen, I have the if I want to stay at this job where I'm making $15 an hour forever and I'm happy here, cool. But if I want to make $25 an hour, I can. And this is how I get there. I need to have a driver's license. I need to have a whatever it is. So creating that opportunity for them to grow. So they really, if they're leaving, that's not why.
Sure.
It's not because they have no opportunity for growth. There's something else going on.
And it makes perfect sense, because the loss, it makes perfect sense. I mean, in the sense that you want to do that as an owner, because the loss you're going to experience when it comes to losing an experienced person, onboarding another one, and the gap of what happened between that guy leaving and the next guy getting to their level. Oh my God.
The time,
the
money.
accumulated interest that you've just paid on that is insane.
1,000%.
It's just sad.
It's so much more. It takes so much more time and money to go through the hiring process and retrain somebody and do that, not to mention the amount of work that's missed when there's nobody in that position, than it is to just sit down and kind of look at what you're building at your company and see, how can I create something that we're going to have long-term positive effects. This is not just like a one-stop shop. You're going to work here for 6 months and then you're going to move on. Like, I'm spending time and money training you. I'd like to kind of reap the rewards of spending that time and money.
Yeah. If it's a gig, it's a gig. But if it's not a gig and you're trying to build a company and a culture and a community, you're going to have to put the effort into it. Yeah. There's just no doubt. Let me ask you a wrap-up question. What would you say to some individuals that are out there right now looking to dabble in the world of HR or actually get into it and grow as professionals? What's the route? How do you take what exit is it? Like if you're on the highway,
HR.
Yeah.
So HR is definitely unique, and it's a situation where it's hard to get a job in HR without experience. But there are people that, and I'd like to say I'm one of those people, that can recognize individuals that have potential and that are super smart and interested in HR and want to learn. And that's where I would start. So when I started bringing people onto my team, that was what I was looking for, with people that were motivated and excited and had a little bit of HR background, obviously, but more that they were interested in learning, and they were ready to take the next step, and they wanted to get to a point where they could have an HR role and work independently. So I think that is looking for the opportunity to work under someone who has a high level of HR experience is definitely the step.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to do it.
yeah,
And
for sure.
I like Gary Vee's attitude towards this type of stuff, because he, again, not everybody can do this, but if you can allow yourself to knock on someone's door and say, hey, I'll work here for free.
Yep.
I just want the experience.
Yes.
I am motivated as hell. That's
Yes.
why I'm willing to work for free. And, I have 5, 6, 3 months of, backup to live off, but I just want to be mentored, work my ass off, and learn from what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I recognize you as a powerful HR / any other profession, person.
Like starting a business, somebody had asked me recently, what do you recommend when you first start a business? How did you start a company? And I think that what I told them was I was a sponge. I would meet with anyone that would meet with me and explain to me how they started their company, what their experiences were, things like that. And I walked out of that every single meeting with either something that I thought was an awesome idea, I'm going to do this, or I was like, I'm never going to do that. That sounds like a terrible idea.
Right.
But it was a learning process. So being a sponge in that situation of just being open to being taught
Sure.
is huge. And, you'll learn something from everybody. And that's like, we learn something every day. So keeping that
checks.
mindset. Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question that I just thought of, because you brought up mental health, and not every company has the capability of having. Have you seen the show Billions?
Yes.
Yeah, they have Wendy. Remember, she's like their therapist
Yes.
on the floor.
Yes. Yeah.
She basically does like, okay, well, come here, let's
Yes.
fix you. You seem a little broken.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are extreme high performers and whatnot, and not every company can allow for that type of position to exist. But what would you say, that equivalent that's reasonable that we can input or implement in companies to make sure that mental health is checked,
Yeah.
that it's observed,
Yeah.
that everybody's, we know what's going on, not somebody just going and, God forbid, doing something to themselves, and we're like, okay, we missed this completely. Nobody even seen a sign.
Yes. So first of all, you can call me at CYB Human Resources.
There you go. That's a good start.
And that's what we do a lot of the time when we're working with a company. So our best first step is having an HR hotline. So that's something that we offer to small businesses, super inexpensive, and it's something that you can offer to your employees to reach out if they have questions or concerns or issues. And it kind of acts as a fire alarm for a small business owner because
first response.
Yes, because they think everybody loves each other and we're all happy and, but there's so much more to it. And a lot of the time an employee is not going to go to the CEO and say, I'm having a really hard time with X, Y, and Z, or I'm not getting along with this employee and I don't know how to have this conversation and stuff like that, that you want them to have access to somebody that can coach them and guide them in the right direction. And then in addition to that, an EAP, which is an employee assistance program, is super inexpensive. It's something that you can add on. It's usually an 800 number, and it's offered by lots of insurance companies. And that's something that we try to get into place as soon as we start working with a business, because
So it's like a subscription-based type deal?
Yes, it's usually based on headcount, and it's something that while we're working with small businesses, when we're looking at their insurance and what they have in place, and an EAP is awesome. So I think that the combination of having an HR hotline with an HR professional that can help kind of direct what's going on a little bit, and support the business owner so they know that they have an ear on the ground, even if it's not them, which we recommend it's not, because we don't want them involved in everything going on.
No. Also, you probably won't get the truth.
No, exactly. And that's why having somebody in place that is, we're there for the business, but we really are there for the employees to bridge that gap, and provide that support. And then having an EAP in place that can really, they call and it gives them mental health support. And, if they have alcohol issues or addiction issues or depression, stuff like that, that it shows your employees that you care outside of getting your job done.
Yeah.
So.
Amen. Hopefully more and more companies and managers implement that.
Yes.
So to close on this, just you touched on it in the beginning, but tell people if they want to get your help, small business owners from here and from anywhere else, to get consultation or your services, where is the best place to reach you and your company and your services.
Absolutely. So we're online at cybhumanresources.com, and we offer a complimentary discovery call. And the reason why we do that is we want to kind of learn a little bit about your business and see if we're a good fit up front.
Hey, if you're not open-minded,
If you're not open-minded, this is probably not going to be a good match, because we do come up with really unique ideas and ways to set your business apart. So CYBHumanResources.com, and our phone number is 833-CYB-ASAP, and you can reach us, and I can hop on a call with you and kind of walk you through some suggestions. But yeah, we have options for all size companies. If you're growing, you want to have this stuff in place now before you have 50 employees, and
sure,
it's a lot harder to implement a process and a policy when you have 50 employees than when you have 5 or 10. So now's the time to get started, for sure.
I would think so.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Katie, thank you for coming again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. I think we covered really important subjects,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of people that can extract value out of these conversations, and we'll make sure it's out there.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Katie.
great.